Kelechi, welcome back. How's it going?
Going well. Thank you for having me, Alex. Nice to
No,
be back.
absolute pleasure. People always ask me, right, what's your favorite episode? And I'm not gonna boost your ego by saying that I always put your one up there, but it definitely contains one of my favorite moments ever, which we'll talk about in a bit because I want to come
Mm,
to that. But obviously, this has been a wild year in
yes.
general, right? So, I mean, we probably recorded that episode. I'd say a year and a half ago. No, maybe even
More
2 years
than.
ago.
Yeah, yeah,
Reckon
yeah.
two? Oh yeah, probably actually thinking about it. So what's been the biggest learning you've made about yourself in that time?
Oh, I think that definitely it was probably something around productivity, I would say. Like in the past, I think, so yeah, since I was on a podcast last and all the things that happen in the world, I'll definitely say like productivity, knowing that my worth as a human, as a Black woman specifically, is not inextricably linked to how much work I can do, because you always feel like, oh, I've got to stay working, I've got to stay working. Especially if you've grown up in a Nigerian household, that's what it's felt like. You can't, it's like your parents are allergic to seeing you resting. Like my mum will come in and she'll be like, oh, have you done this? Have you done that? And you're just like, I just want to rest from, high school is a lot. And so you kind of grow up and have that in the back of your mind, like, oh, should I be doing something right now? No, rest is beautiful, just rest. Um, and I think, yeah, so the past few years or past couple of years, having my son, the panoramic, aka the panna cotta, all of that's happened, and it's made me really value stillness, or just value not doing much, and being okay with it.
I love that. It speaks so much to me right now. So much because I took a break from the podcast for a few
Yeah.
months just because I was in that, like, I was unable to rest from the podcast, and this was
Mm-hmm.
just showing up in different areas of my life, but it was very real when it came to this, because you're like constantly on the wheel of like, okay, like who's the next guest, and like there's no time to really sit back and appreciate everything that's gone on. And like, by having that break, I was like, actually, instead of like always trying to find new guests all the time, why didn't I just try and get people back on who I really enjoyed having last time, right? Which is
Yeah.
why we're doing this again, right? And that wouldn't have come out of me just continuing as I was. And I think that that space to rest, although it sounds really counterproductive, it was the most productive thing I could do
Yeah.
then, right? And that's been a powerful lesson, man. Like, honestly, like it's changed so much, like, outlook for me in life. Like, so a little example, yesterday or the day before, no, yesterday, I had like quite a busy morning, and then a busy evening with like coaching work, and I had a call with my coach quite late. So I had like a 2 3 hour window sort of mid-afternoon where I didn't have any work to do. Old me would have gone, okay, let's cram this with work. New me went, let's switch the PlayStation on and chill for a couple of hours. And that's like, it sounds stupid, but that's a big win for me, because like
Yeah.
that would have been 3 hours of like cramming in work, and but I just use it to rest instead. I got a busy evening of like 4 hours of back-to-back calls. Let me just, it was
Yeah.
more than that actually, but let me just chill, and like, and it was so powerful.
Yeah, and I think it is, and I love that you went to gaming, because that's like with me and my Nintendo Switch. I
Mm.
just People are like, "Oh, what do you do to relax? What do you do to switch off?" I go and play Animal Crossing, and I just become my little colonizer self on this island, and I just build things, and I have the best time, and it's great.
Yeah.
So it's a great way to kind of just like switch off. And think about nothing really, and just enjoy being in the moment. I think that's what gaming allows you to do, to just be in that moment and only that moment, and give your brain time to relax and to rest.
Mm. 100%. And I think, do you know, and that's one of the things that I really got from this past year, was like spending the evenings like playing PlayStation with my mates was like one of the biggest, like, uh what's the word? I don't want to use the word savior, but like, do you know what I mean? Like the biggest,
Yeah,
like, place where I just could rest and just be in that,
yeah,
be in that, like, it's a different, like, you're literally in your own world on Animal Crossing, but it's like you're in
yeah,
your own world, right? And it's
yeah.
just nice.
And yeah, it's great. It's therapeutic, and I recommend it. I think that as adults, they say like one of the biggest disservices that we do to ourselves is that we stop playing. We just stop playing. Everything becomes so serious because we're told that it must be. And play is such a great space for creativity, but even just not linking it to anything, just not having an outcome, just playing for the sake of playing. And I really value that. I value that as a mom, as in just a general adult. I just value having that space where I can just not be for a little while.
Yeah, you lose all of your identity in a way, right? In a good way. Like you stop becoming mum, you stop becoming, Kelechi, you stop becoming Nigerian, you stop becoming, all of these labels that we have that we have to we feel like, we believe that we have to live up to. It just falls away, and you're just in this magical world. And that doesn't have to be gaming. That can be anything. That can be going out and playing sports. It can be reading, whatever it is. There's so many different examples of it, and it's a really great space to explore what's fun for you, or even if some people don't know how to answer that, what used to be fun for you when you was a kid. That will give you a lot of answers.
Yes, definitely.
So, as I alluded to earlier, one of my favorite ever moments from the podcast is when we did the tarot card reading. And I think my mind was quite visibly blown. And I genuinely still think about that a lot. I vaguely remember what the cards were, but I've got the clip so I can go back to it if I want to. So it crosses my mind fairly often, I have to say. And what we're going to be doing here is something a little bit different to what people are used to hearing on this podcast. Maybe not your podcast, but we welcome them anyway. We welcome them. But we're gonna we don't know what we're gonna talk about, and it's as simple as that. We're gonna put the faith and the trust and the guidance in the cards that you have, and we're gonna see what comes up. So I don't know whether you want to talk a bit about the cards and what they do, and maybe give a mini intro to them, and then we can just see what happens from there.
Perfect. Yeah. So if you've heard rustling, I was just shuffling while we were talking, because I think it's good to kind of shuffle the cards and everything as we're having a general chat. We get the energy, where our energy's at. And I really enjoy tarot. I love oracle cards. I love divination through cards. I think it's called cartomancy. Getting your answers through cards. And a lot of people are scared of it. They see it as, it's the occult and it's scary and you shouldn't do that. And I think it's really a space to train your intuition and to train your self-esteem as well. The real path, or the real journey that we're all on, is to know ourselves better, really. All the things that we interact with in life, we want to know ourselves better. And we've got these tarot cards that are designed. I'm using the Lisa Starr Modern Witch Tarot deck. So it's designed as the traditional 78 card Rider-Waite deck, which is one of the first cards that we see in circulation. But Lisa Starr's drawn them to be predominantly women and non-binary people in this deck, which I really, really like as well. And then I've also got the Wisdom of the Oracle deck, which isn't a tarot deck, it's an oracle deck. So I think there are 50 cards or so, and we'll draw one of those, and it comes with a specific message. So I've got the book next to me as well for the specific message. And I think that cards are just a great way to see where your energy's at. Rarely will they ever be wrong, because they just cover the whole spectrum of human existence. So something will resonate. And I always say that if something doesn't resonate, put it down, leave it, because you might find that you come back to it months from now, weeks from now, sometimes even years from now. You remember that statement, because time doesn't exist in the way that we know it to exist, and it's not linear. So a message that we receive today might not be for ourselves now, it might be for ourselves next week, for ourselves in 2 years' time, but we're being gifted that information now. So we have it almost as a tool in our toolbox as we kind of navigate this thing called life.
Oh wow, I love that. And okay, so I want to go here first, right, before we start. For anyone who's listening who might be thinking, this sounds like a lot of woo-woo shit to me, yes. What's your message to those people? Because I got some stuff that I want to say, but I want to hear what your words would be to them.
I feel like woo-woo shit and physical shit, they can't exist without each other. We are more than we think about ourselves as physical matter, but when you go atom by atom and you break everything down, you still come back to energy, right?
Mm-hmm.
And energy is what we're using right now. And I think that we've been trained in this kind of capitalist society to eschew and to dismiss anything that can't be sold in a certain sense. And that is essentially what our spirit, that's what our energy is. It really can't be sold. We're made to think about ourselves as these individuals that need to get things to feel happy and need to have this concrete sense of self amongst everything else. And this is why people, for instance, don't like astrology or don't respect, for instance, astrology. But it's interesting because the sun is over 90 million miles away, but we feel the heat and people get sunburned, right? The moon is right there and it pulls the tides in and out. But somehow you, who is made up of maybe more than 60% water, you can't be affected by the moon the same way the water is. So literally all the clues are there all of the time that we are not separate from the world that is around us, and everything is literally energy. So you are woo-woo shit. Like, we are woo-woo shit. We're made of it.
I want that on a t-shirt. We are woo-woo shit. That's hilarious. But yeah, no, I completely agree. And I think that what I would say to anyone who's listening is like, just like listen to this with an open mind. Like whether you're into it or whether you're skeptical, just really listen to this with an open mind, because all you're doing is learning how to put trust in something that you can't necessarily see, right? And it's removing your own interpretations and ideas and stories and thoughts around what's possible and going way beyond that. And this, I mean, not necessarily tarot cards, but that way of believing and trying to experience life has transformed my life. So I would really like to invite you to really engage with this episode. Like, we don't know what's coming out of these cards, right? You don't know what's coming out of these cards. These cards aren't just for me and Kelechi to talk about. These are for you, if you're listening or watching, to really engage with as well and really see beyond the card and the meaning for yourself. And like Kelechi said, it might not be necessarily for now, it might be in a future version of you or whatever, but that would be my advice, is just to be really open with this and see what you can get from it, because I will guarantee you'll get something from it.
Cool. So let's shuffle. Let's see what we've got then. Let's see whatever cards come out, we'll just go with that, because each card is an archetype of something, so represents something, how I've learnt them. And it kind of works with the individual. So I might see a card and it means something to me, and I know the general meaning of the card, the agreed meaning of the card, but you might look at it and pick up something also from the card, something else that you're decoding from the imagery. And that first card that came out is the Page of Swords. So we see a young girl, and she's holding her sword, and she's like on top of a mini hill, like a sandy hill. And it came out in reverse, and I read reverse cards as well. So I'll tell the listeners what that means. Basically, a card comes out upright. I mean, it doesn't super change the meaning, but it's important for me as somebody that reads cards in reverse as well. Some readers don't. Whichever direction the cards come out, it still means the same thing, because they use the rest of the deck to contextualize the message. But Page of Swords usually means somebody that's starting out. A page is young, fresh. Swords is about intellect, the mind. So when we see a page, they're starting out on a journey with something to do with their mind, right? So let's see what this card, the next card that comes out. So that's the usual meaning. Oh, and then we've got the Tower card. This is like the least favorite card that people like to receive. Yeah, chaos.
I'm scared.
That people don't like to see in the deck. So we've got the Tower card, and we'll get one more card, and we can pull as we go along to guide the conversation. Cool. See what comes out. So we'll start with the first 3 cards. I'm looking at that and I'm thinking, of course. I'm looking at that and I'm seeing that what we're being told is past, present, future. Okay, and then the Hanged one is at the bottom of the deck. So the card that we've got is the World.
Okay.
And then we've got the Hanged one at the bottom of the deck.
Okay.
And so then we'll get a card from the Wisdom of the Oracle deck to kind of bring all of that message to, what did we get? I'll go with Thinker. Okay, I'll take that one. TikTok, I'll leave that one. Actually, no. Spirit says take both. So I'll take the 2 that flew out as well. So we've got TikTok We've got thinker, and we've got come to the edge.
Oh,
So
okay.
I'll take those ones.
So that's 3 from
And
the
four,
Oracle deck.
and four, in fact, four.
4.
All right, well, I'll read all of them because I don't know what we're being told today. So I'll read all of them. I don't know what is going on.
Something weird. We need guidance in this conversation.
Yeah, it's just like, there must be a lot of people. People must really need this, boy. All right, cool. So Page of Swords we've got in reverse, and I read that as being the past self, right? Because the next card that we've got is the Tower card. And so the Tower card is a major arcanum, which is, there are 22 major arcana. And so they're cards that speak about overall life energy. And then the minor arcana are the cards like the swords, the cups, the wands, and then what else have we got? The sword, the cup, the wands, and the coins. So coins usually speak about career, finances, work. Wands about action, being out in the world, passion. Swords, mental spaces, what we're doing intellectually, that sort of things. And cups is about our emotion, kind of like our internal world, right? So we've got the swords is the only major minor arcanum that we've got, but we've got the Tower, and then we've got the world. The swords came out in reverse. Page of Swords came out in reverse. What I'm getting from that is that before the Tower happened, before this chaos happened, and so I'm taking this to be like 2020, or for some people, it might even be like right now.
Yes.
Before this chaos happened, where everyone's jumping out the window, we could see like lightning, striking the building, and people jump into their deaths, that sort of thing. Just utter chaos is what we're seeing there. Before that happened, a lot of people were this kind of Page of Swords. They didn't realize how little they actually knew. One of my favorite sayings is that, the one thing I know is that I know nothing. And a lot of people felt like they knew everything. Prior to 2020, a lot of people were like set in their ways. They felt like they knew everything. They felt like they were on the right trajectory. Everything was set good until, boom, chaos hits. And then suddenly they're brought back to the fact that this is us all the time. We are always learning. We're always students of life. And anytime we feel like, oh, I've got all this shit on lock, you're going to be reminded in a very swift way that no, you do not. And so that energy of always remaining like humble and always ready to learn, it's better to kind of operate from a life of I'm ready to learn, I'm willing to learn, as opposed to I know all that there is to know and I'm not changing my views on anything. I mean, we saw that with the resurgence of the Black Lives Matter movement, and suddenly people going, oh, I didn't know that racism was still a thing. I didn't know that this is what was happening to the people all around me, because we're so set in our ways, we're so set in our beliefs about what we've been told about life that we didn't want to consider anything different. And that was such a rude awakening for so many people. At the same time, some of us, have worked in jobs all this time and felt like, oh, well, this is the trajectory of my life. I'm fine with this. And then 2020 happens, and it's like, actually, there's more to me than I realized, and there's more to me than that I want to explore. And I never realized that. And really, that's when you start living. And that's why the world card shows up, because the world card is an ending. It's an ending, it's a graduation, it's a celebration, it's travel. So for some people, it's literally travel, realizing that they want to relocate, realizing that maybe they want to end relationships, or they want to end the dynamic of a relationships, or the relationships that they're in, looking at it and going, that cycle is done. I don't want to repeat that cycle with you. We've outgrown that. We've graduated that. Where can we go? Because this Tower energy, this chaos has shown me that I actually want to live life. I don't want to think that I know everything, And at the same time, for some people, this card coming out in reverse as the Page of Swords could also speak to somebody who was always doubting themselves. Like, as much as they present to the world like, oh, I'm fine, there's this deep, deep insecurity, this deep sense of, I don't know what the fuck is going on. I don't know what's happening. I don't get it. And then suddenly, when you see everyone losing it, everyone just kind of, and this is the physical body as well, right? So we could take this also as a physical body. Sometimes things happen, really knocks you physically, mentally, all of that stuff that we see in a Tower card. It looks like destruction, but the Tower card always reminds us that I can only destroy what you did not build on a sturdy foundation. If you didn't build it properly, of course I can come through and move it. And so we're being reminded that henceforth we need to build on solid foundation. So whether that's our sense of self needs to be built on solid foundation. If it's relationships, it needs to be built on more than I find you physically attractive, or, you know, this is cute, or this is convenient. There has to be something solid there, because it's going to get tested. And when it gets tested is when you either graduate or you don't.
Okay, right. So there's a lot there, right? And I think I'm just trying to let all of that settle in, because I think what I'm taking from that on a personal level, but also based on what I've seen and observed happening this year, well, I say year, everyone knows what I mean, right? However long it's been, right? Is that, like you said, the Page of Swords is about the wisdom and, you know, thinking that you know it all. And I think that for me, I've seen is people, I guess, seeing themselves as like, this is how I am. I'm in this way. It's set in stone. This is how I am. This is how I'm going to live my life. This is how I deal with things, etc., etc. The chaos happens, right? Which was obviously COVID, lockdowns. And all of a sudden, everyone's faced with themselves, right? In lockdown, there's a lot of time to be by yourself, right? There was no more distractions of holidays or going to the pub with your mates, or, you know, running away from your feelings that have been trying to come out all these years. And, you know, this is good and bad stuff, right? Not always doom and gloom bad stuff. But we were all faced with a lot of ourselves. And all of a sudden, people felt like they were struggling because there was this feeling of like overwhelm with like, what am I dealing with here? Like, I don't know how to cope, right? And that's because for so many years, or however long, and when I say we, I include myself in this, we have been running away from these things rather than facing up to them, dealing with them, really, like, you know, being hands-on. And I think that tells a really great story in those cards there, because that's something that I definitely know has happened to a lot of people that I've spoken with and connected with over the past year, like friends, family, like coaching clients, or just people I've connected with online in DMs or whatever. Like, it's happened a lot. And then what I like about the third card is it's the world. It's like, it's an overwhelming sense of connection. It was like, although we were all in a very similar situation individually, there was kind of comfort in knowing that everyone was in the same situation. It wasn't like a personal attack on me or you or anyone listening or whatever. It was a very global situation, and there was comfort in that, right? And it was kind of, it felt like to me there was a real conscious awakening of like the way that we all experience life individually, but we're ultimately connected. And that to me is what that world card is saying. And again, like I said, I don't know that much about cards. I'm just going based on the stuff that you've just said and the cards themselves, right? But this is how I'm receiving it, right? That world card represents connection, represents being connected, but being open at the same time, because that's what the world is. The world is so open and it's so large, but it's ultimately all connected. A tree that pops up in South America has an effect on something that's happening in Japan. Without a doubt, right? And that's how deeply rooted, no pun intended, how connected we are, like globally. Like, we are as much a part of nature as nature is, right? And I think that's been a real big wake-up call for me personally and a lot of people. And I think that's so powerful. Like, when you come back to that idea of connection, oh man, like it plugs you straight back in, like to like life, like, do you know what I mean? Like, experience, like, it's amazing. Like, compassion, it plugs you into the whole thing. It's like, it's amazing.
But it's a lot to feel, and it's a lot to feel, and it's a lot to feel in a society that's telling you to not feel it, or go with a version of it that's easy to market, right? And I think that's what, you know. Then we've got the bottom of the card, which is the Hanged One, you know, and so we see the Hanged One, that it looks like they've been kind of part there, that they're hanging from the tree, But, you know, and then we've got the figure 4 as well, which goes back to foundation again, but they put themselves there, so their hands aren't tied behind their backs. They could release their hands at any time, and they've only tied one foot. So the other foot is always free. So they could do a massive sit up and come out of that situation. But they don't, because from this position, we see the light on top of their head. That enlightenment, they've got a different perspective on life. So sometimes we enter into situations where, you know, the hand one is literally a great representation of what lockdown was meant to be. This was the intention to not, you know, the intention, I'm talking in the esoteric sense, that, or what we could have garnered from it, is that in that space of time where you feel like you can't do anything, but you've been put in this situation, you've agreed to be put in this situation, right? Because some people are out protesting, but you've agreed to be put in this situation, and hopefully it's going to give you a different perspective on things that are happening. And that being at the bottom of the deck, I would read it as, that is what we're meant to be getting from all of this. But as things open up again, I think that it was so overwhelming to be faced with self. And I remember a quote that says, you know, the happiest or the saddest day of your life will be the day you finally meet yourself. And a lot of people had that experience during lockdown, over the past, you know, year, 18 months or whatever. They've had that experience, and they don't really know where to go now, because if you're meeting somebody for the first time, it takes a period of time to get to know them, especially if that person is you and you felt like you've known yourself all of this time as the Page of Swords, and you're really realizing that you don't, or you're realizing that the kind of person that you are hiding away, because you thought that that's not suitable, you know, people aren't going to accept me, I'm not going to belong. Because of everything that's happened, that person in you has had to fight through and come forth, and that's where you're graduating from. You're appearing in the world naked, because the nakedness of the woman in the middle of the wreath is important. It's vulnerability, is appearing in the world as who you are. The only way you're going to be able to graduate and go to the next stage of this journey that we're all on is to show up as you. You're not going to get through in any other disguises, and bare of us, we're trying to make it through life in these disguises, and your blessings do not recognize you. Like the things that are meant for you do not recognize you, because you don't recognize yourself.
Yeah. Do you know, and something else just came to me with that, that narrative of the cards there, is that the first one with the sword, with Page of Swords, was it?
Yes, Page of Swords, yeah.
That's all of us seeing life like, I'm on this battle, like she's on a battlefield, right? She's holding the sword. I'm on this battle of life. It's about how I'm, you know, facing the world. It's about how I'm going to engage in this battle. This battle's going to be difficult. It's going to be this, it's going to be that. And then you arrive at the scene, which is the tower, and there's absolute chaos. And you're like, oh shit, I'm not prepared for this. Like, I'm not, like, I'm just me and my sword. Like, I didn't think this is what I was agreeing to. Like, I didn't think I'd actually have to go to battle and like fight people. And it looked like there was a dragon flying around the tower or whatever, or flames or whatever it is, and lightning hitting it. And it's like it's a war scene. And all of a sudden you're like, you feel very lonely in your own like self, right? In your, with you and your sword. Although you're surrounded by all these people, you're like, you feel vulnerable more than lonely is probably the word. But then the world is like, I'm seeing that as like a zoomed out view, right? Where you're like, actually, if you zoom right out, I'm just this little speck on this one little battlefield across this whole huge planet. And it reminds you that actually what I'm feeling and thinking and what I'm experiencing right now, ultimately in the grand scheme of things, doesn't matter. And with that comes a huge sense of freedom, right? Which brings us to the Hanged one, which is like, now there's this new perspective on life of like, wow, okay, so if all of these things that I've been worrying about and stressing about actually ultimately don't matter on a huge scale, like, what does that mean? Like, there's like a clarity and like a lightness, I guess, that comes with that. And that seems really apt as well, because like I've experienced that in my life, and you know, this taking this narrative away from 2020 and 2021 just in my life, like you know, in my 33 years of life, this is a narrative that I've seen happen. And you know, people can say that the world and the Hanged One card, you know, you call it a spiritual awakening or a moment of enlightenment or whatever it is, right? But that's the narrative, right? If we were literally writing a a story arc, that's what it would be. It'd be like, here's your hero,
Yeah.
something terrible happens, they now feel vulnerable, but now they've got a new perspective off of it. And that's I think very apparent and evident in a lot of people's worlds in very different ways. You know, it doesn't have to be related to anyone in particular, but that I think shows up in that way in a lot of people's lives. And that can continue on small scale, big scale, like it's continually happening. And I think if you're willing to take learnings from the experiences that you're having, tower wise, good or bad, right, it connects you to the ultimate zoomed out perspective, which gives you a new perspective on what you're living.
And that's true. Like the hero's journey is something that we can all relate to. And I think that the tower always shows you that as the kind of like representation of the dark night of the soul, that nobody's coming to save you. Like you are the hero in this story. You've got to save yourself. You know, you'll meet people along the way who will help you and who will give you tools and who will help, you know, give you directions and things like that. But ultimately, you are the one that needs to save you. And through doing that, through having that belief in yourself, you want to foster that belief in other people as well, supporting them to save themselves. I don't believe in like giving a voice to people or necessarily empowering people, because I feel like they've already got these things. They already have their voice. I'm really only there to remind them that it's there, like, you know, remind them to use the things that they already have. And, you know, these are the things that we see in the cards, like, even with the hanged one, you can release your foot at any time. If you really want to, you can release your foot, as long as you've learned the lesson that you're meant to be seeing from this different perspective. From the Wisdom of the Oracle card, we've got Thinker, which 44, again, foundation. Right under the Page of Swords, which is interesting because that would be Thinker. It says here, the ability to reason and strategize is the focus now. Take things at face value and follow the logical path. Your calculations will prove to be correct, for in this moment, there is no deeper meaning than what is obvious. Things are exactly as they seem. You have all the information you need. Keep it simple and you will win the game of life you're playing right now. Relationship message says, love is not logical, but when you choose a partner, it is good to have things in common other than desire. She said that. This is a time to weigh the pros and cons of your partnership. If there is enough common ground, go for it. If not, there are other fish in the sea. Don't force it to work. And should others tell you who they are, take them at their word. Now is not the time to indulge in a fantasy, no matter what. In this case, the facts are the facts. Prosperity message says, calculated action is called for right now. It's important to sit down and plan a strategy. Focus on the steps you're going to take to claim your prosperous life. Lists are your friend now. So get out your journal, write down what you're going to do today to signal to the universe that you're serious about attracting abundance. Your plans and strategies will yield wonderful results. Remember, your most effective strategic partner is spirit. You will win this game and your triumph will be for the highest good of all. Again, we've got here protection message, because it always gives you like 4 parts. It says here, protection message says you might be suffering from analysis paralysis. Thinking has its place, but trying to figure everything out logically is not going to work right now. Your conclusions will likely be faulty and you may act upon false assumptions that will get you into a jam. Give your mind a rest, do something creative, exercise or meditate. Soon you'll come to your senses and an aha moment will bring new clarity.
Oh, that's nice. Do you know what the message that I get from that as a whole is like one of effortlessness.
Yes.
Like we apply so much thinking to situations that is unnecessary. In fact, I'd say it's unhelpful and it's useless, right? When you come back to, okay, what was and I talk about this a lot with like my clients and stuff. Okay, what was the original thought, right? Observe that thought. But the second that you go beyond the observation of the thought, you've now gone into judgment and conflict. And that's where the useless part comes in, because like that's not helpful for you. Let's just observe the thought. Okay, this is the thought. Okay, what do you want to do with that now? Right? And that's the effortlessness of it. Like you forget all of the other thinking and the worry and the stress and all the other narrative around it. Let's just go with that. And it's like that old saying of like, just put, you know, one foot in front of the other and the next step will become clear, right?
Mm-hmm.
We try and think 20, 30, 100 steps ahead of ourselves. You can't, because you don't even know where your 99th, 90th, 10th step's going to be. But if you put
Mm-hmm.
the second step in place, the third step's going to become obvious. The fourth step will become, and that's making it effortless. Like, we can choose to make things effortless by not engaging in all of the nonsense that we attach meaning to stuff, and the rest of it. And that's what I'm really getting from that one there.
Yeah, definitely. This idea of like, you don't chase, you attract things. And this isn't like necessarily going like, oh, laws of attraction and blah, 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 but literally that energy of chasing is one of confirming that you are lacking, that there's scarcity, so you only get more of that thing. Whereas sitting in a space of, well, I know I attract great things and they will find me, means that you're seeing things more clearly and you're making better choices. And it's all about, making the next best decision. Like, what's the next best decision for me? That I can only do that. I can't think about the 15 million other decisions that I need to make. Just make the next best decision, because we can't factor in other people's behavior, right? So we don't know how anything's going to play out. Wake up tomorrow, turn on the news, could see something wild. We can only go with what we know right now in this moment and make the best decision that we can make right now. And when you asked about tarot earlier, like, what is tarot? Tarot is feeling, right? You're just feeling your way through the cards, trusting your intuition. Because when you start thinking about the cards, it throws you off completely, because then you're allowing a space to come in of it just becomes, you become too intellectually rigorous with it, and actually that can shut off that heart space of where you just understand. Sometimes we just understand things, and it's about letting that come forward as well. Number 13, we've got fork in the road. It says here, every choice has a consequence. You've arrived at a fork in the road and you are being asked to come to a decision. Will you further your dreams by choosing left or by choosing right? Will you take the road less traveled or the one well worn by others who have come before you? This is your choice and yours alone. Circumstances and other people will not make it for you. Be present and do not avoid this junction, for it is an important crossroads. Take heart, as no matter which path you choose, you will have a rich and meaningful experience. Relationship message says, you've reached a moment of truth in the evolution of your relationship. Which will you choose? To open up to the possibility of love, or to remain isolated? To go deeper and commit to mutual passion, or to walk away? This is a time to take responsibility for your truest desire and follow it. Be honest with yourself about what you're willing to do, invest, and give. Then choose. You cannot make a wrong choice. If you move forward with a relationship, know that it will be based in truth and authenticity. You will have made a conscious decision, rather than simply hanging on because you don't want to be alone, or ending things because you're afraid of the intensity of genuine connection. All roads lead to the lessons you must learn in your relationships. Regardless of the decision you make, it will place you on the path to a truer experience of the heart. Prosperity message says, you've come as far as you can on this part of your journey, and now you're faced with the choice. Inherent in this choice is the need for change, for evolution, that's the world card, and for a bettering of your circumstances. Narrow it down to just a single question. Who do I need to become, and what do I need to believe in order to live a life of prosperity? Answer honestly and from the heart. Then the decision about which way to go will become effortless. Know that abundance is all around you. Choose to see it, and it will be easier to settle on a direction, for the way will be made clear by your intuition, which knows how to steer you towards your well-being. Protection message says, indecision is extremely frustrating and will lead to anxiety, loss, and confusion. At this juncture, you can't remain in place without losing your way altogether. Avoid the tendency to let others choose for you, which amounts to a subtle refusal to take responsibility. Don't give your power away, not even to this oracle. By not making a choice, you are making a choice for which you must be accountable. If that choice leads to undesirable circumstances, take heart. Spirit never tires of giving you a second chance. You can always start again once you've learned this valuable lesson.
Wow. Oh, do you know what? There was so many words that just jumped out at me there, like be present, commitment, effortless, like trust. I don't know if it was necessarily said, but it's the feeling, right? It's like, be present with your decision. It's a fork in the road, yes. Be present with your decision, because whatever decision you take is going to be quite huge and impactful on the rest of your life. But whichever one you take is going to be the right thing for you. And that's the
Exactly.
important thing. It's like these decisions seem hard. And it goes back to what we were just saying, right, about effortless. They seem hard. If you make the decision effortless, like you would, am I going to have orange juice or am I going to have water? You're not going to think too hard about that. You're going to go, I fancy water. I'm going to have that. That decision is making a change for the rest of your life moving forward. It's a small decision. It's no different with a big decision, well, a perceived big decision, right? Just make the decision and go with it. And I think what a lot of us do is we do make a decision, and again, including me in this, and then we want to go back and go, no, I don't like this route. I want to go the other route. But now you can't.
Yeah.
You can't, you can't go back in time, literally. So you have to stick with the route. So it will be the right decision for you because you've made that decision. And I think that's a really, really powerful message, actually, because that's helped me a lot recently make big choices in my life. And like the bit I loved about that is where it said, ask yourself who you need to become in order to, have the prosperity and abundance in your life. That's a powerful question, like I don't think people understand how deep that question is. Like we're literally saying, who do you need to become in order to have the things that you want in your life? And that might be like, loving partner, like freedom with your time or whatever. Like you need to become a type of person that will then create those things for you. They're not just going to fall in your lap. You can't just do loads of things and they're going to happen. You have to become someone, and your being is going to impact the doing that takes place. And that's powerful.
It's a lot. And I feel like that's why the world card being there speaks to so much as well, because we're looking at the sword, the page of swords in reverse, and mentioning earlier about like your blessings can't recognize you. You don't even recognize you because you're in this disguise. You don't want to appear as who you are to yourself. So then we bring that back to, who do you need to become in order to have the life of prosperity that you desire, the abundance? Well, you need to become yourself. You need to show up as the truest expression of you. And that's why the world is the last card of the major arcanum. So it's the last part of the journey. The hero has finished that part of the journey. They finished that adventure, and they're naked. She's naked right there, because everything that she needed to shed along the way, that we needed to shed along the way, has been shed. And so you can appear as who you are to yourself, like be naked to yourself, be vulnerable, appear in the world as you. And it's a very, very scary thing to show up in the world as just who you are. So we try to kind of cloud it and shroud it in so many different things, but really the thing that we want also wants us. We just have to be willing to show up as who we are to have the things. And I'm always saying to the listeners on my podcast that, I always pray that you are ready for the blessings that you're asking for, because a premature you receiving your mature blessings is absolute chaos. And that's why people get things and lose things, because they weren't mature enough to handle the things that they'd asked for. And so I want to meet my blessings when I am, the things that I've asked for, the things that I'm striving towards, I want to meet them with the capability of being able to sustain them and to enjoy them, not be fearful of, do I really deserve this, or to not value them because, well, who cares? Losing the idea of value because I wasn't emotionally mature enough to appreciate what I attracted to myself. So I like that. And then we've got number 30, Tik Tok, that says, when humans created time, everything changed and contracted. People have come to look at life in a linear way, imagining that the past is behind them and the future ahead of them. But what if that isn't true at all? What if everything, creativity, beauty, chaos, and order were happening now in a glorious timelessness? You have all the time in the world to co-create the life you desire. So release your agenda. Let go of your need to shape each moment to your expectations, knowing that what is yours will never be withheld from you. Miracles are here right now and always show up when you need them, right on time. Relationship message says, love, the fulfillment of desire, and even the body's reproductive cycles have their own timetable. Some things are preordained and cannot be coerced. Everything has its season, its divine and appropriate timing, especially when it comes to matters of the heart. Remember that you always have enough time to love. to find it, to nurture it, to give and receive it. Its clock is eternal and ticks according to the beating of your heart in perfect rhythm. Isn't that wonderful to know? Love is always right on time. Prosperity message says, your prosperity is co-created by your endeavors as they occur in human-made time and the eternal efforts of your most important manifestation partner, spirit, in a divine measureless time. So keep doing what you're doing. Stay positive and make a commitment to remain in high vibration thoughts and feelings. If you heed the message of this card, it will seem as if you will align with your highest calling and your highest good in no time at all, like magic. So what's all the fuss about not having enough time? The prosperous life that is yours will never pass you by. Protection message says, have you been feeling as if the clock is ticking and gotten a little nervous that your dreams are taking too long to manifest? There is nothing to fear. You will never run out of time for the important things. The miracles that are yours and yours alone can't be missed. Isn't that amazing? You're in such capable hands with guides and angels hovering in the invisible spaces, ensuring that your journey will be filled with all sorts of goodies. Let your anxiety be gently dispelled by your faith. Spirit will never deny you your highest good. All is yours in divine, appropriate timing. You can relax.
Ooh. Oh man, these are getting deeper. I need a breather after every one. Wow, like that. See that the first part of that, right? Really, what really came to me as you were talking was, or reading the thing was something that I've actually recorded an episode on already like, a few weeks ago, which I won't relay the whole thing now, right? But I'll link it up so people who want to listen can go and listen to it. But essentially, it's talking about your unlimited potential, and we see life in a very linear way, right? Where it's like, okay, if my maximum full potential was 100, and the opposite was 0, I'm probably somewhere in the middle, anywhere from 20 to 80 is where most people are going to put themselves, right? But what I was talking about is I want people to see that the reason why you're saying you're at 20 and what it's going to take for you to get to 100 is just stuff that you've made up. It's just thoughts and thinking that you've placed in place. And actually, in fact, there's more beyond the 100 than you can even imagine. It's way deeper than you can even imagine. So you're actually, your own thinking and ideas and concepts are limiting what you believe is your own unlimited potential and when you can become it, right? But what I want to bring people back to is that, again, what we were talking about earlier, right? You are as much nature as nature is, right? Nature is full of unlimited potential. Our universe is full of unlimited potential. So are you. So anything that seems out of reach to you is a lot closer than what you think. But you have to allow yourself to believe in that and stop believing these stories and these narratives and this, that, and the other and whatever, and really embody it and become it, right? Going back to what we were talking about just before, like who do you need to become, right? You need to become unlimited potential. Like we can go super deep on this. We can start talking about like Marvel shit, like multiverses and all of that, right? But because that's what it is. Like any, and it goes back to the fork in the road, right? Any decision you make creates the timeline that you live. But if you'd made the other decision, that would have created another timeline ahead of you, right? All of this stuff is continually at play at the same time because there is unlimited potential in everything that you do. And that might sound mad to someone who's hearing that for the first time. I understand. But really just sit with that and be with it and just understand it. Try to see it for yourself. Try to understand it for yourself as best as you can. And like, that will change so much for you. Like, it's changed so much for me. And yeah, like it's deep when you actually recognize, oh, I'm just limiting myself within my own thinking. Like there's so much more beyond my thinking which I am capable of and is capable for me. It's mad.
Yeah, it's a lot. It's a lot to take in, and that's what I love about tarot, because even within tarot, even within like using cards as a divination method, the answers, the help is limitless. You've got so much help available to you because the cards can come out in any number of combinations. You know, I can use various decks to, you know, shuffle them all together, see what comes out. But based on my mood that day, based on what I experienced that day, maybe what I heard before I even started to read the cards, what I heard that week, I'm going to interpret the cards differently. And thus, you know, all the outcomes are unlimited. And I love that about cards and about life. And it's just about remembering that the day you plant the seed, it's not the day that you eat the fruit. And that's really, really hard when you're high functioning the way, for instance, that I am, because I definitely resonate with all of these cards, but specifically that card about you're looking at your life thinking, but this is the amount of work that I'm putting in, and the things that I wanted to see as a reflection of my work, I am not seeing it currently. This is pissing me off. And then having to sit with the fact that there was a point where I didn't know my power, and I managed to stumble into this life. So now that I'm aware of the power that I have and the rigorous work that I've done to know myself more and to share myself and to be vulnerable and things like that, surely, you know, everything just gets easier, and it does. So having to check myself for that impatience to, you know, of wanting certain things, but why do you want it right now? What is it that is going to prove? Oh, because then I can show that I'm successful. To who? Oh, to the outside world. Also, it was never really about you. It's about proving something to people who don't really care. And you're able to break that down to yourself. It changes a lot of it just changes a lot of things. But I just think that that's one thing that I appreciate so much about how the cards sort of humble you. They give you the guidance and you can go with it. Our final card is Come to the Edge, number 36. And then that's us. Let me see. 36 says, facing the unknown is the only choice you really have right now if you want to progress. It's okay to be afraid. Now is the time to take a risk that is not calculated, to feel the exhilaration as you ready yourself for a leap of faith. Spirit is present, so let go of fear. You are called to express your true self. Listen to your heart and soul, not your head. Come to the edge and discover that you can fly. You must step into the unfamiliar so that you may find your miracles. The relationship message says, it's scary to be truly intimate with someone, to allow him or her to see all of you, especially the parts that you've kept hidden and protected. Now is the time to take that risk and let yourself be seen, truly seen. It's important that you speak up, voice what you need, state who you are, say what you hope for. This is not the time to play it safe, but to take a leap of faith. You'll be glad you did. If you're seeking a relationship, the same applies. Take one step towards the gods and they will deliver what you truly desire. The prosperity message says, if ever there was a time for you to take a leap of faith into the unknown, it is now. This is the perfect moment to take a big risk. The unknown is the only choice now, and if you come to the edge, you will discover treasure beyond your wildest dreams. Allow your courage to lead you in spite of your fears. You don't need to know the exact form of what you're going for. The essence is much more powerful, and Spirit has a way of delivering an even better version of prosperity than you could imagine. Take that step. The results will be amazing. The final protection message says, fear is leading the way into places you don't need to go. Most of what you fear at the moment is an illusion stemming from an old belief that isn't even true. Now is the time for courage. You will not be lost at sea. You will not watch everyone else get what you want while you are left alone and unloved. Oh, the drama of it all. False evidence appearing real is hovering over you. The more you dwell on fear, the more real it will become. Ask yourself, who in me is afraid? Love that part of you. Ask, is this true and real right now? The answer most likely is no. Give yourself a hug. It's okay to be scared. Courage must be summoned. In spite of your fear, even when you're not feeling confident, Spirit will always catch you.
Boom. I feel like that card's telling me to go to France right now.
This moment, tonight.
Right now. No, but do you know what? I think that's such an amazing card to follow on from the previous one. Like what we were just talking about, like unlimited potential, tapping into that, like understanding it. And then it's like all of a sudden, like leap into the unknown, like step off the edge, leap into the unknown, away from your known reality, and see what happens and trust in it. Like, that's mad, because that's life-changing. That's a life-changing approach to anything, right? It's just like being comfortable with stepping out of what you know. And this doesn't even mean like stepping away from, you know, a job or a relationship. It could be like going deeper into that relationship or deeper into your commitment to that job. Like, it doesn't have to mean going away from something, right? And like going deeper into the unknown is gonna bring you far greater rewards than being comfortable. Like, nothing great comes from being comfortable is the saying. And that's so powerful. And it doesn't have to mean, you know, achievement, success, like money, like it doesn't have to mean any of that. This could just mean like being willing to unleash the true you that has been hiding underneath all of these stories and layers for years and years and years and years. And this is stuff that I'm still uncovering. Like, I'm still uncovering this true version of me. I'm still, you know, peeling away the layers of the onion or whatever you want to call it, right? But like, it's leaping beyond what I know and being willing to not even challenge it, but just trust in like what I know isn't all there is. About me, about life, about any situation, and leaping beyond that. Like, it's almost like being on, you know, going skydiving and being at the top of the thing and being in the door of the plane looking down at everything. Like, you have to take that leap, and there's no point leaping and being paranoid and scared and like, oh my god, and screaming and fearful, because you're not going to enjoy the experience. Whereas if you're fully immersed in the experience, as you're, you know, tunneling back down to the earth from a very high place, you're going to fully enjoy that moment and probably find some sort of serenity in it. And that's what this is talking about, isn't it? It's like just taking that leap and enjoying it and trusting in it.
But I think that that's great that you also use the word serenity as well, because when we think about that prayer and it says, you know, grant me the serenity to accept the things that I cannot change, and, you know, like wisdom to know the difference. I think that that's important, because when we look at these cards and we talk about leap of faith and that the example of skydiving, you find serenity in understanding that you don't have control and embracing the fact that you do not have control and surrendering to that. And we live life with this false sense of control, right? And so when we're shown that we don't have control, we absolutely lose it. So it's being mature enough, emotionally mature enough to be like, most times I don't even have control, right? Anything can happen at any time. But what I can help with, what I can facilitate to bring out a specific outcome, I'll do that. But what I can't, it is what it is, and I have to just go into it with the best attitude that I can have, which is hope and peace. And it's funny that it talks about leap of faith when the very, very first card of the tarot is the Fool card, which we didn't get. And the Fool card, the protagonist is standing at the edge of a cliff and we can't see the bottom. So we don't know what's going to happen. We don't know. They've got their trusty dog with them. They've got a little backpack and they're smiling. They're ready for this journey. They're not even looking down. They're looking up, even though they're literally about to step off like the edge. But we don't know if it's just a little step down or whether it's a cliff. We just have no clue. And it's beautiful that that's the first card. And we've got the World card here, which is the final card, which is kind of like reminding us that every single day there is death and rebirth around us all of the time. Even if we think about work, you know, we don't cry every time we've got to log off Zoom when we finish work at the end of the day. Well, some people might, but you know, you accept that that is the end of the working day. And so you're going to go about your business and go to the next stage of whatever your day might be or your evening. But for some reason, when other cycles are ending, we get so upset about it, not realizing that, well, actually, it's just the pre kind of preliminary stage of going into something new. And not being scared of that, not being scared of endings. And like you said, I think that's great. Like sometimes we talk about relationships ending and people think we're talking about breakups, but sometimes we're literally talking about dynamics. Like we are reborn every day. So to expect our partners to not be reborn in every day, in every moment. And so we're meeting ourselves anew all of the time. And now imagine a whole pandemic has happened. You're dealing with an entirely new person. And have you made space for that new person? Are you willing to say goodbye to what you had prior to the, March 2020 and allow yourself to see what's possible going forward? Or are you going to keep mourning that and not going anywhere and staying in a corpse of a relationship? So those are our cards, really.
Oof. I feel like I need a lie down. So before we sign out then, for you, what's the big takeaway from these 8 cards that which shouldn't even have been 8, right? It was supposed to be 5, wasn't it, right?
Yes.
These 8 cards that we've pulled. Like, what's the big takeaway from it all?
The biggest takeaway I've gotten is that like life is going to do whatever life needs to do to introduce you to yourself, no matter what. And I say to my listeners all the time, like, you better do the tower before the tower does you, because the tower because the tower will find you. If we're trying to build on anything that isn't solid foundation, the tower energy is going to rock up right up in there and start kicking shit down. And that's not a bad thing. I know it scares us because the tower energy is usually catches us off guard, shakes our entire world. But the thing is, we can facilitate something that feels easier. Not everything has to be basketballs. Not everything has to be combat. You know, if we see that something isn't quite sturdy, can we fix it, or do we need to move to firmer ground? What do we need to do to facilitate the best structure for our life that we're trying to live? And because when we do that, we allow for ourselves, in the terms of the world card, we allow for ourselves to grow. We allow for ourselves to truly connect. I can't connect with anybody. I can't trust myself to connect with anybody if I'm standing on shaky ground. And a lot of us, self-esteem wise, are standing on shaky ground. So that's why the paranoia might hit. It's like, oh, maybe they don't think I'm smart. Maybe they don't think I'm funny, because the foundation just isn't there. And when you have that, you can go for your dreams, and then you'll feel safer to have hope. Hope is such a scary thing to have. But we all deserve it. We all deserve hope. We all deserve peace. We all deserve joy. We all deserve love, right? And to have that, we need to have a solid foundation. And that foundation is self. That's a trusting in ourselves, and a trusting that we are part of a bigger narrative than what we realize. And I go back to that statement from the Max Ehrmann's Desiderata of Happiness. You are a child of the universe, no less than the trees and the stars. Like, remembering that the same matter that made the things that you look up to at nighttime made you. Like, that is enough reason to go for the things you want, because you deserve it. Like, you're magical. You deserve to have your things.
Yeah. That's amazing. And do you know, I don't know how to follow that up, but I'm gonna try. And I
Yes.
think for me, the takeaway was like what you were just talking about, you know, realizing that the world and everything is so much bigger than your own battle, right? Which was kind of the first part of what we were discussing. And that everything can be effortless. Everything can be effortless if you allow yourself the choice to do so, right? And by doing that, it will allow you to see beyond your current perspective. It will allow you to trust that there's way more beyond what you already think you're capable of, and taking that leap, you know, to just do it and just trust in it. And you know, you hear it all the time, oh, everything will be all right, everything figures itself out, everything falls in place for a reason. Like, that is some woo-woo shit, but like this is like real. Like, we're saying, like, me and you are personified examples of that, I'd like to think. And I'd like to think that people listening are as well, or they're on their way to that. And I think, you know, when you really put the faith and take that leap and understand that there's way more beyond what you think you're capable of, if you allow yourself to see beyond that perspective, like, do you know what I mean? It's like your own big bang.
Yeah. Your own beautiful chaos. It's possible. It's possible.
Exactly. Oh, well, look, there's one thing that I'm going to ask, right, for anyone who is listening, because I think this would be really important, not just for me and Kelechi to know that this was the helpful conversation, but for you, if you're listening, I think it'd be really helpful for you. And I'd like to invite you to message myself and Kelechi with what you have learned and what you have taken from this conversation. Because, I mean, right, it might serve our egos in some way, but it's going to serve you so much more powerfully as a person to really understand what the learnings are and start to see how you can apply it. And I'm sure, you know, Kelechi is much like myself. She'll reply to DMs and what have you, and have a conversation about it, because that's where the real learning takes place, is when you start to try and apply some of this stuff. So to do so, Kelechi, where can people find you online?
You can find me on @Kelechnikov. That's KELECHNEKOFF. Yes.
And that's on all socials pretty much, isn't it?
Yeah, everything, everywhere.
Awesome. Well, look, thank you so much for the time today and for this. Like, I actually feel like I need to lie down. I've got another recording after this, but need to lie down. So thank you so much for
My
bringing all this to
pleasure.
the table and for just vibing. It's been great.
Thank you.